Hey, Jake, it's wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
It's good to be here, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. So let's begin our journey into your work by asking you this. 5 years ago, the pandemic, we were knee deep into it, so much going on. Now that the proverbial dust has settled, so to speak, how did you survive the pandemic and how has it reverberated into what you do today?
It's wild to think about how much my life has changed since then, but pandemic started. My wife and I moved up into the mountains in the Berkshires. We were living in Brooklyn at the time. I was working for a marketing agency, and I mean, how'd I survive? She helped me survive. It was just the two of us. We stayed at her recently deceased grandmother's condo in the middle of nowhere. We spent the first few weeks cleaning mouse poop out of drawers and out of closets and made it livable. And we were just in our own little bubble. We were working and doing a lot of yoga, and I started baking sourdough like everybody and making kombucha and just tried to focus on being healthy and enjoying life as best we could. And man, since then, I left that to pursue software engineering, went back into marketing, started an agency with somebody, left that agency, and recently started Patient Procure back in August of 2024. And I've been working on that since.
So I remember working at a home health agency years ago, and the management system was called Procura.
Hmm.
I remember that very clearly. So I was just wondering how that works with naming conventions, and if obviously you got to get, trademarks and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, so Patient Procure is actually a DBA. I'm
Okay.
not going to talk about what my LLC name is. It was another business idea that I had that I was working on for a while,
Yeah.
that I opened up a bank account and was starting on. And like most startups, I didn't see a future and I pivoted and went into this idea and just have been running with it since. So, I'm of the mindset that the name doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think that I spent a lot of time working with early stage companies. I ran an incubator for WeWork for a while, and a lot of people agonize over stuff like what should the name be? What should our
Yeah.
typography be? What should our colors be? It's all a distraction. The only thing that matters is putting out a good product, making sure your customers want it, and trying to execute, provide the best service you possibly can. So, I did a little bit of research. It didn't seem like there was anybody with the exact same name.
Yeah.
People do get confused because procurement is its own thing within the healthcare industry, and we don't do that at all.
Yeah.
But I thought it was pretty close to what we do, patient acquisition. And so that's how I settled on it. But I don't think the name matters much.
Yeah. No, I agree. Let me ask you this. If I put you in front of a bunch of kids, they always get the truth out of you. 12-year-olds, career day, the kid in the back of the room that's always curious is like, hey, what do you do for a living? What's your answer?
I help doctors find patients, and I help patients find doctors, and that's it. The healthcare system in this country needs a lot of support. It's getting harder and harder for physicians, particularly ones that are at smaller practices, to find business, and everything is digital first. Patients are spending huge amounts of time online researching not just who they're going to see, but also they find out everything they need to know about their condition and the treatment options before they even step foot in a doctor's office. So, doing as good a job as we can to demystify the process and to help patients understand what their options are and what they should be looking at before they choose a provider is super important to us.
So, what did you want to be when you were 12 years old? What was your dream life?
Musician still is. I still got time.
Okay. What was the first concert you saw that really moved you?
The first concert I saw, I don't know, my parents were super into music. One of the earliest was a Bob Dylan and Tom Petty show.
Oh,
Uh, and that has shaped a lot of my musical influences. I play guitar and I sing, and I played the saxophone for a long time. Music is a huge part of my life. The first concert I went to by myself was Dispatch in Manhattan at the Bowery Ballroom, I think it was. And I must have been 12 or 13. My dad's from Queens. We moved out to Long Island when I was little, but he felt really strongly about me spending time in the city by myself. So he put me on a train, sent me into the city. I went and had a day with a couple friends and came back. And that was the beginning of my obsession with going to concerts.
My dad was born in Brooklyn, raised in Long Island. He was up in Massapequa.
There you
So
go.
yeah, it was so yeah. There's a lineage. I was a Mets fan when I was a kid. I was at that age when the Mets won in '86, where it was like euphoria. Um, I'm curious how you got here. Take me back to your childhood. What were these foundational elements of kind of the right and left brain between music and software and having these merge to helping people find the right doctor and having doctors find the right patients?
Well, I'll talk about entrepreneurship and how I got there. When I was young, my dad started his own business, and I think he traditional baby boomer, felt very strongly about me working really hard, getting into a good college so I could work hard, do well, get a good job, and then create a life for myself in the traditional way, even though he had not. He was a lawyer, and was a practicing lawyer for many years. And at some point, looked around and saw that a lot of people who are not nearly as intelligent or talented as he was were making a lot more money in different industries. He left. He started his own asset management group, and has been in finance in one role or another for the last 40 or so years. Um, so even though he didn't push me into entrepreneurship, I saw that path. I saw what it meant for how he spent his life with me and my brother and my mom. He was my coach from T-ball and into Little League. He was always at all of my concerts and plays. He was present. And I saw him spend time with his friends. He had a regular poker game. He played basketball with his friends. He was able to live his life, and it was because he was his own boss and he got to live life on his own terms. And again, even though he didn't push me into that, I saw those lessons. And as I got older, I just never jived with a traditional 9 to 5. I just was always kind of a malcontent. I just always thought I was smarter than the people around me. I was really bad at just putting on a smile and pretending like everything was okay when things weren't. I found it really difficult to complete tasks when I disagreed, when there wasn't an outcome, or it wasn't explained to me. And people would say, do this, and I'd say, why? And they'd say, well, it's just how we do things here. It just drove me crazy. And so, I spent a few years in asset management, post graduation. Actually, I moved to China. I spent about a year and a half living in China, studying Mandarin and teaching English. Um, and then I got back, I started in asset management, and I couldn't. I mean, I think it's a pressure cooker. It's a difficult industry to be in. And I was in New York City. It was a very classic financial services role where I was cold calling 100 plus times a day, cold emailing, just hardcore sales, and was in an environment that I couldn't be in. So I started a company. It crashed and burned spectacularly. That's when I joined WeWork. I was at WeWork for a number of years. And similarly, the bureaucracy, the red tape, the being in an environment where, I was there for about 4 years and I had 13 bosses in 4 years, constantly getting shuffled around, constantly being told this is how we had to do things, even though I disagreed, even though I thought I had a better way, nobody listening to me. And so I always knew in the back of my mind that I was going to start a company again. And I was working at this marketing agency. It didn't work out, and then I must have applied to 250 jobs, 300 jobs, maybe more. I don't even remember at this point. And it was baffling to me. I know I have value. I know I'm intelligent. I know I would be an asset to any one of these companies. I couldn't get an interview. I mean, the only interviews I got were through referrals. It was impossible to get an interview. And at the time, there were massive layoffs everywhere. I mean, the largest tech companies in the world are cutting 10%, 15% of their workforce. We're talking about millions of people. And at one point, I sat down with my wife and I had this very, very deep conversation about something that I've known inherently, but had really solidified in my heart over the prior few months of we're we're sold just this false bill of goods about what stability looks like and what it means to work for a 9 to 5, to be dependent on your health care from one company, your paycheck from one company, versus how risky it's perceived to start your own business, where, startup capital has never it's never been cheaper to start a company. There's never been more tools to do so. It's never been easier to connect with your target market. It's never been easier to validate an idea. It's never been easier to find employees. It's never been easier to implement AI and automation. It's just the scales of risk have tipped dramatically, and I don't think that it's talked about enough. People still believe that pursuing a 9 to 5 is the safest option. And it probably still is, but the upside of starting your own business versus the risk that I don't think is nearly as high as people believe is just it's out of whack. People just don't approach this in the right way, in my opinion. And don't get me wrong, entrepreneurship is heartache, it's anxiety, it's stress. I mean, you're definitely it's a trade. But to me, having the opportunity to chart my own path, to be the boss, to make the decisions, and to get to a point now where I'm close to earning the money I would have in a traditional company, but it's all mine
Yeah.
and it's growing and I get to call the shots and I'm building something that hopefully will be around for years to come. Hopefully I can pass it to my children. It's impossible for me to be more bullish on entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Uh, I just feel like it needs to be talked about more.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the younger generations are getting hip to it. That whole idea of investing yourself into a company that can let you go at any point. And even if you do continue, all of it's under their name. It's not under yours. They're swallowing up your intelligence and all of your work and all of that. So, the one thing I've heard about, entrepreneurship in many interviews, one of the best summations is you go into it, the best way to approach it is to solve a problem, and that's what you're doing. This is definitely solving a problem. You're in a niche kind of a thing. Did you think about that when you were starting this up, that this is, I have a problem, we have a problem, let's hone in on it and see what happens.
Yeah, so I fell into healthcare marketing pretty accidentally. I joined this other agency, and that's their focus. And look, healthcare is extremely antiquated. There's a lot of support that's needed, and they say, what is it? Niches where the rich is, right? Riches in the niches, whatever.
Yeah.
It's better to specialize. People want to know that you have case studies, that you've done it before. And so, my earliest career when I was in asset management, I raised money for biotech and healthcare organizations. And it felt good reading the prospectuses of these companies and meeting the scientific board and feeling like I was helping grow companies that were gonna make the world healthier
Yeah.
and solve real problems. And that's how I feel today. I mean, it's marketing. I don't want to pretend like I'm the one who's curing cancer, but when I connect patients who are in pain with a pain management physician who can alleviate that pain. And then I get to create content with these patients that help them tell their story about how this physician has changed their lives completely so that he can do so for other people. It feels good.
Yeah.
So, I like being in healthcare. I like feeling like I'm making some small difference. I feel like every industry has its issues and it's easy to get bogged down in uh, you know, is this a net positive or benefit to the world? I mean, who knows? But I feel pretty comfortable with what I'm doing these days, and I like this niche. It feels like there's a lot of opportunity for growth. There's lots of investment, there's lots of attention, and it's like you said, I mean, it's a massive problem,
Yeah.
especially healthcare today is so much about roll-ups, private equity coming in and buying small practices and grouping them together that being able to help the small and mid-sized companies find patients so that they can provide a superior service and survive and thrive has been really cool.
So on your journey to finding your place right now, who's been that hero, that inspirational force for you?
I mean, I have a handful of business influencers who I look up to. I really like their content. I've gotten really, really cheesy as I've gotten older with the like traditional productivity and self-help style of believing in yourself, shutting out the negative voices in the back of your head, getting rid of limiting beliefs. So, the in terms of who are like heroes, though, I mean, everything to me is about my family today. That's my heroes are my wife, who has been supporting me a ton, not just emotionally, but financially. And also, we have two small children doing a ton of work there and seeing my kids every day. That's the motivation that I need. It keeps it's same as how I talked about what my early days were and seeing this with my dad. I want to be the same presence. I want to be the coach. I want to be cooking dinner for them. I want to be dropping them off at school and picking them up in the afternoon when, one of them is sick and my wife's got to go to work. I want to be able to stay home with them. I just want that for my family. And so that's, I look, I've had a lot of trouble in my life with so I haven't had many mentors. I mean, I've been super close with my dad, and he's been a mega mega influence on me and still is to this day, and he's still kind of like on my board of directors who I'm constantly getting advice from. um but throughout my work career, I didn't amass a lot of mentors, and I looked very hard to try to find inspiration, and it's kind of hardened me to a degree where I try not to look for advice so much from other people and trust my gut more and really look inward and internally. And so I don't think so much about who are the heroes that I look up to. I think about what are other businesses that are doing things that I'd like to emulate, that I'd like to like what are processes that I see other people doing? How are they using automations in AI in ways that I want to implement in my business? How can I try to achieve the same not necessarily success, because I think it's hard to even define what that means for different people, and you never know how well from the outside somebody's actually doing. Um, but there's people who I look at and think, oh, he was on a podcast, he talked about doing something this way. I want to emulate that. I try not to think like, this person is the be all end all, because it's typically apples and oranges. I really try to think about what's the life I'm trying to live, what's the life I'm trying to provide for myself, for my family, and like take inspiration from that.
So when you look at the spheres of like your life in one bubble and your life as an entrepreneur in another, and of course it's a Venn diagram that bleeds into itself, what's your overall philosophy on balancing that? You obviously have to put a lot of work in as an entrepreneur. It's you, it's on your shoulders, but you have kids and you have a family and you have your soul and you have all of these things that you want. How do you go into each day balancing those out? Or is there a balance? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not good at it. I mean, there's a really great quote from Stephen King, and there was this comic I used to follow called Zen Pencils that did a little mini comic on this that I loved, and it was all about how when he was younger and he was writing, he had this huge mahogany desk, and he was in a room by himself behind this huge desk, and that was where he wrote a lot of his best work. And over time, I don't want to like spoiler alert here, but he ended up moving that desk into the family room where he could always be around, or I think maybe even he got rid of the desk and he had a small desk so he could be around his family all the time. And he realized that separation was not serving him. And that's how I live my life. I'm on Zoom calls all the time when my 4-year-old will come upstairs and will come and bother me and sit in my lap, and he'll be a part of the meeting with my clients or with vendors or my employees or whatever. I try not to separate them. I mean, obviously, I'm in a room this is my office.
Yeah.
I have solitude when I need it. But I think that it's a misconception to keep them separate. I think
Yeah.
you have to bring, especially as an entrepreneur, you have to bring your whole life into everything that you do. And when I'm talking to a client, I tell them about my sick kid. If I need to be out because my wife has a work thing she has to do, and my nanny's out and or whatever, I need to bring my older one to school, whatever it is, it's part of life. Work is like, there is no balance. And maybe I should be better about that, but I'm not. It all swirls together in one mass of beautiful chaos.
So, if you had a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the journey you've taken to find your entrepreneurial world, what advice would you dispense on that that young version of you with all this wisdom you have?
Stop thinking and do. Go and do. Just, I mean, I, for so much of my life, was paralyzed with, uh, um, not really analysis paralysis, but like paralysis of choice. I grew up in the generation, I'm a millennial. I was told I can do anything I want to do with my life. Just set your mind to it and you can do it. And I believe that. I believe that that's true for the vast majority of people. The problem is that I was paralyzed thinking every new path that I could conceive of was the right path. And I couldn't choose the path because I was like, oh, well, if I do this, it means I can't do that. It's all BS. I mean, pick one thing and do it. And more likely than not, you'll figure out within the first few weeks, months max, whether or not it's the right path, but you'll never know until you do. And the vast majority of the time, you'll at least get an answer. And some of the time, you'll hit on something big. And I still think about ideas that I had when I was younger that I wish I had pursued because the time has passed or somebody else did it now, or I don't have the luxury of being able to do it because I have a wife and two young children and responsibilities. So stop thinking and do. I think that's the advice that the vast majority of people who are interested in entrepreneurship need to do. Just do the smallest version possible of it. Find one paying customer, find one person who you can do it for free and get feedback on it. Just
Yeah,
do something. Just start pushing, start publishing, start shipping.
absolutely. So let me ask you this. There's millions and millions of people out there that play instruments that had dreams of being on that big stage for their lives. That's the career. But the reality is that there's all kinds of people out there that play instruments, and you obviously are versed with multi-instrumental knowledge. What has the knowledge and the background in music given to you, which is a more right brain kind of world? How has that lent to more of the linear world of being an entrepreneur? How have both of those coexisted for you?
I was a big jazz musician. I
Okay.
played in like the All Long Island Jazz Band. I was second chair alto saxophone. And playing in a band it's like being on a sports team. I mean, you have to learn how to be part of a team, how to blend in, but not be, too quiet, not be too loud, but, have your part be heard. When you're soloing, it's improv. You need to, there's a call and response with other people in the band. You have to listen to your band leader. You have to be able to take criticism and feedback. So there's lots and lots of lessons that I think have bled into my professional world. I also think that, you enter this fraternity and when us, I don't have it up now, but, usually I have like a guitar in the background because then anybody who's a musician is like, oh, you play guitar? And then
Uh-huh.
you immediately bond with people on that level. And just anecdotally, I mean, some of the most talented people I've ever worked with in business are also musicians. There is some degree of uh it's almost like speaking different languages. There's some just way that you see the world. Uh, I don't know, that just gives you deep insight into the human condition and how people operate and what people are looking for. So I think there's lots and lots of carryover between the two. But I'm thrilled that I ended up keeping this as a passion and I didn't pursue it. I recently played with a friend who is a professional musician. I went over and we were in his studio after and we were putting beats down. And this is going to sound like a brag. It is kind of a humble brag, whatever. He was like, wow, man, you're good. I think you could be a session musician if you wanted to. I think that you could do this. And I was like, that, first of all, is the greatest compliment anybody's ever given me in my life. And I can die happy now. I mean, truly, like that was the amount of validation was immense. And also just such gratitude that I didn't go down that path. And I'll tell a quick story. When I was getting ready to go to college, I almost went to university for saxophone. I,
Okay.
I thought about majoring in music. And I was visiting some schools and thinking about how I was going to audition. And my teacher at the time was like, Jake, don't do it. Don't do it. And he was my high school teacher, and I had been playing with him for a long time. And he basically was like, listen, I teach you and a dozen other kids. I work at the high school. I I gig, I record for other musicians, I record for commercials, I tour all over the world, and I'm barely making ends meet. And this guy was a world-class trombone player. I mean, unbelievable. And it's some of the best tough love anybody's ever given me. You
Wow.
know, the honesty to be like, listen, this is not, I love you. This is not you. You should not do this. And I didn't. And it was, I'm so grateful that he gave me that guidance just to spare me from, because, the life of a jazz saxophonist is like, unless you're going to be one of the Kamasi Washington, like the top in the world, like it's tough. It's tough. It can be a tough life. So, anyway, just to say, sometimes you should listen to the people in your life when they're giving you hard advice.
Well, I actually live in the town that Pat Metheny's from. And when I think about musicians that actually made it on a large scale, there's just not a lot in jazz. I mean, you got
Yeah,
your Christian McBrides, you got your, obviously your legendary figures that are out there that have been around for a long time. But it's just one of those things that you do it because you got a passion for it. It's kind of like me doing jazz radio. You do it because you got a passion for it, you know?
yeah.
And so what's the at the end of the day of everything that you've done, evolved into and accomplished, what are you the proudest of?
I mean, the truth and the cheesiest answer is my family, but I'll move on from that because I think that people want to hear a different answer. But truly, having children and building a family is the greatest thing I've ever done. I'm so grateful every single day for that. This current business is the best thing I've ever done. I mean, I have not achieved close to what I want to. But it's a very early stages. We've been around for 8 months. I've got a bunch of clients. It's going well. I wake up every day excited. I mean, sometimes I'm pulling my hair out and my wife is rubbing my back and telling me everything's going to be okay. But I mean, it's my beautiful mess. I get to determine what's happening. And at the end of the day, I have a lot of friends who feel very uncertain about their future, who are working at some of the largest companies in the world. And, they get rumors of layoffs and they don't know whether or not they're going to be. And these are people who are immensely talented and
Yep.
immensely intelligent. And I believe are, obviously I'm biased, but these are some of they are objectively intelligent, talented, experienced, and good looking. Seriously, I
Yeah.
mean, these people are brilliant, and they're still like, man, I just heard there's layoffs. I don't, maybe I'm next. And do I have anxieties about things falling apart? Of course, but I don't have to worry about somebody saying, Jake, your performance isn't there, or we're making your department redundant. So tough luck, And
Yeah.
so I wake up every morning just you know, ready to do battle and excited for the opportunity and grateful for the opportunity to do that.
So one step deeper into this, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh man, I think I'm a clown. I'm still that a dancing performer. Um I have done a lot of therapy over the past few years, and I've been working really hard on trying to get rid of, like I said, my own uh, limiting beliefs, the self-doubt, the fear of failure. Um, really, really try to focus on, giving first, providing service over delivering and under promising, just you know, I see myself as I don't know. That shouldn't be such a hard question to answer, but I really try every day to just put love out into the world, whether it's with my family or my friends or my clients or whatever I'm doing. And that's the only legacy I really care about is providing a good life for my family and leaving the world a little bit better um, than I found it, and hoping that people see that in me.
So I love you the first part of that when you said you're a clown. I got out of corporate America. This is a perfect segue for what we've been talking about. I got out of high corporate. I was at an HNTB, an architectural engineering firm, and I started doing a campaign for the United Way. I had to get out. I had to detox. I had to get into something that was more kindred. So I was just running a campaign, and there was a guy that I was working with that was a professional clown, and I was going to go into schools as a clown. And one morning we got to climb into a car together in full gear, and I could have swore there was going to be wrecks all around us. So you've almost inspired me at one point with an interview. I got to be very, very careful about doing this. Just completely get into a clown garb and just have the cameras come on and just act like nothing's wrong. Just
I
go
mean,
like I'm a clown. That's all. I'm doing
I
it.
mean, to a certain extent, we're all jesters. We're all
Yep.
dancing.
Yeah. Well, Bill Burr got into a sparring match with a journalist the other day, and he was like, "What do you want from me? I'm just the clown. I'm just the guy on
Yeah,
the unicycle, you know?" And that's the way it is. So I got to know, as a jazz guy, if you could get into a time machine, go back in time and see one show, where are you going?
it gotta be Miles Davis. I mean, gotta be.
Yeah.
There's so many people who I'd want to see, but just the electricity, the energy that he brought. I mean, I would, I would love to see him in action.
I have one son, and his name is Miles, so I get it.
There you go. Right on.
All right, man. If anyone wants to reach out, they want to get involved with your wonderful platform, questions, anything else going on in your world, where do they go?
Website's patientprocure.com. You can hit me up at jake@patientprocure.com, and I am an open book. I'm happy to be of service in any way that I can.
Excellent. Jake, thank you so much, man. This has been wonderful. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. Hey. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.